Yeah, we are. I'm sorry. Hereby call to order tonight's regular meeting of the Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals for December 20th, 2023. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It is the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permits, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order: review, amend, and approve meetings of a previous meeting. Unfinished business, move to new business, and then conclude with announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that it appears on the agenda. For each conditional use and variance request, the following is done. I will introduce the agenda item, and the planning division will present a staff report which may or may not offer a recommendation. The applicant agent will be asked to present their justification for their request, which may include questions by members of the board. We will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by me, or may, in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward his/her 5 minutes. If there is a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, I may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that irrelevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his/her opportunity to participate in these proceedings. I may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to provide rebuttal or additional comments, which will be limited to an additional 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward his/her 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, I will declare the public hearing closed, and no further public comment will be permitted. Again, uncivil, unruly, and/or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal from this public meeting. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present finds in the positive of all the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by the planning division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification from planning. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day period is at the sole financial risk of the applicant. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all in attendance. So we'll call the roll. Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Schomburger? Here. Mr. Potter?
Here.
And Mr. Benison. Mr. DeWitt is absent, as he noted that he would be at a previous meeting. But we do have a quorum, so we can continue. I think we need to, we have minutes to, they've been reviewed. We don't really need a formal motion to adopt them.
Oh, we do.
Oh, do we? Okay. So I move that, did anyone see any issues?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I make a motion to adopt meeting minutes from previous meetings beginning on, including March 15th, 2023, up through meetings through the summertime. Do we have a second to
A second.
approve? All right, so we have a motion to approve Meeting minutes from previous meetings, and we have a second from Ms. Cook. All those in favor of adopting the meeting minutes for inclusion in the official record. So that motion passes. We've accepted those meeting minutes.
So we have to do the meeting schedule too.
Yes. So we have a meeting scheduled for calendar year 2024. Did anyone see any potential conflicts with the proposed dates? I don't see any glaring anything with
So
regard.
seeing no conflicts, I would like to move that we accept the dates for next year as stated in the 2024 calendar.
Mhm. I'll go ahead and second that. So we have a motion to adopt the proposed meeting calendar for 2024. We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, calendar so adopted.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So we have two cases this evening. We have V23-13 Kevin Farrell, 529 Aspen Street, request by Mr. Kevin Farrell on behalf of J. Mason for variance relief from section 1335.04 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding setback requirements, city tax district 15, tax map 54, parcel 15.1 in the R1 single family residential district. Do we have, actually planning is gonna present.
Yes, I'll present this after.
Go ahead.
And
then
the
we'll-
applicant, Mr. Cookenmeister, is here as well to provide any additional information.
All right.
So if you can look to your screen, here's where the subject property is in Aspen Street, 529. This is a map of the zoning district that it's in, so you can see that it's entirely surrounded by the R1A district. Here's a Google Street view of the subject property, and the petitioner is seeking to install a new sunroom that's 13 by 16 by 11 on the rear portion of the structure. In doing so, this new addition will encroach into the minimum required setback of 25 feet per section 133304 of the city's planning and zoning code, and therefore the applicant is requesting a 3-foot variance to go ahead and proceed with the plans to install a new sunroom on the rear of this home. And that will conclude my staff report.
All right, thank you. Mr. Yeager, do we have a representative for this case? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Alan Kickenmeister, replacing Kevin for the property and the project. I was the one that actually met with the homeowners for this project too.
Are you the contractor then, or you just?
Design consultant and the salesman, you
All
call
right.
it. So with the project, like he mentioned, the size of it, I don't know if they gave you the visualizer. I can show you that too so you guys can see it. So you can see the setback is 13 by 16 by 11. Based on everything that they said, you needed, it was 22, and we needed 25 from what we were told. With the product that we are doing, it is with one of the pictures. Do you have a picture of the backyard at all by chance?
I do not.
Okay. I took one just in case. I can pass this to you guys if you want to, whatever's easier. So with the project, I always take pictures when we're doing the project, depending on where it is, the scope of work. So with the project, how it shows on here, we're following the same line of what the existing concrete pad already is. So we're not going past any further, projection than what the contract pad's already there. So the foundation's already in place. All we're really doing is adding the footer for where the walls need to be. With this sunroom is not, interfering with anything in the backyard. It's literally just using what that pad's already there. And we're just doing a roof and screen walls around it. So there's no glass or anything like that. That was one of the questions I know a lot of people ask in regards to that. But it's just a roof with glass or with screens around the room with 3 walls. I can show you pictures of the visualizer, we call it too. So it sits on the property to give you a good representation of it. But it's very simple. We're doing all the permits, everything like that. We didn't know about this variance, the projection on all the space until, we did the proper, steps for getting the permit. So with the space, I know I might have to have you walk around a little bit. But the visualizer, this is showing you literally from the scope of work, A wall, B wall, C wall, which is very simple. All the solid down here is just the same material, insulated material, so it's all up to code. We have to do the proper footing so it can actually hold the structure in place. But it's not going against anything in regards to the yard, anything like that. It's using existing concrete pad as it is. But with the screens option, you still have the design, as you can show them if you'd like to. With the screen options, they all slide, all the units slide, nothing in regards to anything in regards. We all meet up to code for the weight and snow load for the structure itself too. It's on the back of the house, so I know with some of the questions that were on here, there's nothing from like the curb appeal per se of interfering with anything that's already there. And then based off that, it's, we maximize the space of the idea. We're using the existing concrete pads, so nothing. They can maximize that space itself that's already there. The framework's only 3 inches thick, or width-wise, 3 inches all the way around. So it's not taking up a lot of space, nothing in regards to interfering with what they already have with the ground, with like their piping and plumbing and the water usage and everything like that. So that's pretty much it. And we're tying it in right to their house, which you guys, I know you have a few drawings there that show where it's tied in and everything too.
So you're Huston Strader Company?
We are patio enclosures.
Oh, patio enclosure.
Yes. And we've been doing projects, 57 years now in every single state at this point too. So very,
Wow.
very well known, which is very nice. And we take every step in regards to the permits, the process, everything to make sure it all meets up to what you,
Okay.
what everyone requires.
Any other questions? So no addition, I mean, you're tying everything into the existing structure.
So we're tying into
No-
the existing structure, correct? Yes.
Okay, no additional like utilities, electrical,
No.
siting outside the footprint.
No, we're going right under the pictures that he has, which I think you guys might have or seen as well too. We're tying it right under. Sometimes we tie it into what their overhang is, and then we give them a new gutter on the back end. But with how the design is, the pitch and everything to have a proper slope, we're going right under their existing gutter. So it's all tied right into their house on A wall, B wall, and C wall to give us the different dimensions because the projection on A wall, as you can see, is a little further than C wall.
Yeah, 2 foot difference.
Exactly, right. But it's all tying into the existing structure. Everything's all sealed completely, so there's no, air gaps, anything like that. But we're using an existing pad as that foundation, so there's nothing, further projection-wise off that.
That's what I was concerned about, additional foundation material. All right. I think we're all set at this point. Thank you. There may be additional questions. So I had I guess I'll pose this question at this point. In terms of the lot being undersized. Can you speak to the undersized lot?
It's just
That it doesn't mean, it's just the history of how that neighborhood was developed.
Right. The minimum square footage for a lot is 7,200 square feet. This is about like 6,900, so it was close. But when the building permit was issued to build the house, it was issued. So,
All right.
yeah.
I'm just concerned, this proposal, you could view the fact that the lot is already undersized, this disproportionately in one way, at least to me, increases the degree of nonconformity even more with respect to the undersized lot.
Understood.
That was
But
my, I mean,
But-
it's not a self-created problem, but.
To that point, do we know by utilizing the existing by adding this room, what is the developed percentage? Does it exceed the?
40%? I looked at that. It does not.
It does not. Okay.
So it doesn't exceed the 50%
Correct.
maximum
that's fine.
developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was included in the staff report that it's compliant with. And again, we're looking at aerial photography and we're doing what
Right.
tools we have, but it looks to be compliant. Yes, sir.
That's a good question.
So the existing lot, not the house itself, but the lot predates the current zoning code. Is that
Pretty much.
Probably.
okay? All right. And it was just for happenstance or the house got a permit.
Yes, back in 2018,
20. Okay.
Oh, wow, that recently. Yeah, because it does look like
some time
a
ago.
fairly new house.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And that's out of the property
Right.
owner's
Right.
control.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's fairly straightforward.
Yep.
I mean, and it's only
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it's only a 3 foot. Does anyone discussion? I mean,
Uh,
I'm
so-
just, I'm,
I'm
lot is what it is.
Right. I'm somewhat hesitant based on the fact that it is, undersized but it's not really their fault. In reality, to be honest, it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
The permit shouldn't have been issued, but that's not their, we can't penalize them after the fact for that. So all of that, the answer to the question in number 2, the statement of fact, it basically the answer is we're just doing this process because we were told to. That doesn't exactly answer the question. But having said that, the reality is they shouldn't even be here in the first place.
Or we should have went through other channels to get
Yes,
the proper approval. Yeah,
exactly.
right.
So I have a hard time knowing the history with saying it's not fair.
Right.
Well, can you speak to whether, like, the adjacent lots, the same is true? Maybe not to the same degree, in terms of being undersized. Can you speak to that point? Can you speak to that?
I mean,
Just in the
no, I
interest of-
didn't do that kind of level of analysis, but if you look at the adjacent lots and how they're sized, I mean, they're pretty proportioned the same.
And the houses are sited
Except that
somewhat
one was a little bit
similarly.
smaller.
Yeah,
on
and their
the lots.
setback, yeah, and so when the house was built, it followed the setback requirements that were required, so, I mean, it met all the, in those parameters, it just didn't, the lot was a little bit undersized for that particular zoning district.
Right. Just in the interest of trying to uphold consistency across properties in this neighborhood.
Oh, okay. So I move that we accept the fine.
Do you want me to do the staff report?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yes,
staff
you're right.
report first. And actually, we
Mr.
haven't
Yeager.
done the
Public
public hearing
hearing,
either.
yes,
Okay.
got it,
So-
yes. Okay, so I'll read the staff report. It is the duty of the Board of Zoning Appeals to determine whether the proposed request meets the standard criteria for a variance by reaching a positive determination for each of the findings of facts submitted by the petitioner. If the board disagrees with the petitioner's findings of facts and determines the proposed request does not meet the standard criteria for a variance, then the board must state the findings of fact and conclusions of law on which it bases its decision to deny the subject variance. Per state law. Staff made no additions, corrections, or modifications to the findings of fact presented in the application, and given the smaller lot size, staff recommends approval of the variance relief from section 133004 regarding the rear yard setback requirement.
All right. Before I open the public hearing, does anyone have any other questions of the project representative? No?
No.
Mr. Schomburger?
No.
No? I sense Ms. Cook's all set. So, that said, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to case number V 23-13, please approach the podium to do so now. Seeing no one, we're gonna close the public hearing.
On that note, I move that we accept the state findings of fact as stated in the packet.
Anyone have discussion on the findings of fact or problematic?
On number,
You brought up number 2.
yeah, on number 2, can we just add or
Yes, you can.
can we add to it to say that because of prior property history, this situation has arisen?
And it's not a self-created problem.
It's not really. I mean, yes, they're
Well-
asking to do something, to build something that they want,
Right.
but
And it's not, we want to note that it's not an unreasonable
Exactly.
development of the property.
right, it's not. And the fact that they were, it happened.
Yeah, I can make that note. Ms. Cook, would you amend your motion to include that revision?
Absolutely.
Do you want to propose wording?
Do we need a second?
I just,
You-
I
you'll-
included that, yeah.
You'll
Okay,
just,
sure.
all right, you'll add it to the, all right, so we just want to note for the record that we're adding some verbiage to finding of fact 2, addressing
Because of the
the
prior history of the property.
prior history and just, yeah, the configuration of the lots, the size of the lots, and it's not a self-created problem. And we want to note that the property owner is proposing a reasonable further development of the property. Okay, so
Second.
We have a motion to accept the findings of fact for case number V23-13. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Plyler seconds. All those in favor of accepting the findings of fact for this case, V23-13, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Findings of fact have been accepted. Do we have a motion to grant the variance for the 3-foot variance for this, the rear yard setback?
I move.
I
that-
will-
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to grant the requested variance for V23-13.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor of the variance, granting the variance? And unanimous granting of the variance. So, sir, you and your client will receive written notification from planning, typically 7 days. Keep in mind, it may be taken to Circuit Court of Montague County. And all work that you do within that 30-day period following receipt of written notification is at your client's sole financial risk. Thanks for coming down this evening. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
All right, moving on to case number conditional use CU 23-05, Primanti Brothers, West Virginia LLC, 485 High Street, request by Ken Sayer on behalf of Primanti Brothers, West Virginia LLC for conditional use permit for a restaurant private club as required by Article 1331 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, City Tax District 11, Tax Map 26A, Parcel 131B4, General Business District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petitioner seeks to establish, as you mentioned, a restaurant private use at 485 High Street in the B4 district. Up on the screen, you can see the footprint of that particular parcel, and more particular, you can see how that's situated in the B4 district, the general business district, which includes downtown and the wharf. The subject property is occupied by a 3-story mixed-use building, and the proposed establishment would occupy the first floor of that building, so both sides, both these storefronts here that you see on the screen, and would encompass approximately 6,600 square feet of space on the first floor. The proposed hours of operation include Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Friday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. That's a typo. It will be open later in the afternoon than that. So I appreciate that being brought to my attention. And the projected number of clients per day is plus or minus 625, and the projected number of employees during the busiest shift is plus or minus 30. While the proposed establishment is not currently operating at this particular location, and you can see the floor plan or the proposed floor plan on the screen here, the Board of Zoning Appeals may consider the proposed restaurant application on the basis of the existing restaurant, which has been in operation for at least 1 year, even though it's not in the corporation limits of the city of Morgantown, but is operating within the area. And that will conclude my staff report. I would note that the applicant, the CEO for Primanti Brothers, Mr. Adam Gollum, is here tonight, as well as the property owner for 485 High Street, Matt Virgin, as well as legal counsel Ken Sayer. So they'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. And with that, I will include my staff report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yeager. Do we have a representative for this case? Or representatives?
I think we're gonna have Adam Gollum, who is the chairman of Primanti Brothers, who's gonna describe the project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here
Thank
tonight. We are excited to bring a second restaurant to Morgantown. If you've been to our Suncrest Town Center location, this will be very similar. We've had unbelievable success in Suncrest, and we think this is the next opportunity in Morgantown. We think it's a great opportunity. If you look at the building, doing a redevelopment of it, bringing, and you can take my, sorry, I have to make you walk. Like you did.
He's getting his exercise.
Yeah. But with our partner, SunCap, we think this is an opportunity, decided to uplift the entrance to High Street and improve the entrance there, and bringing an operator. This is our 90th anniversary. We operate 45 restaurants in 4 states. We'll be operating this just as well as we operate Suncrest, and creating over 100 jobs with the development. Thanks, Ricky. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, to add a little bit to what Adam said, my name's Matt Virgin. We actually own this building as well as the next two buildings down, the new building that houses Chase and Chipotle, and most recently Lane's Chicken,
Lane's Chicken.
as well as the building in between. I've got about 27,000 square feet of retail space among the buildings and 20 apartment units. We've effectively combined 4 spaces that were in this building to accommodate the Primanti's use. There's currently been operations that you may or may not be familiar with within the buildings. We had Whispers nightclub that occupied a portion of the building, as well as the back door, and Casa de Michi, who's recently relocated just a couple of doors down to the former Lots of Pizza space. We've invested a good deal of money here in High Street in Morgantown, and we're sidetracked a bit by the pandemic. This was part of our initial plan for the building, to go ahead and re-tenant it. There was some vacancy associated with this, as well as some tenants that, quite frankly, didn't quite fit our investment model with some of the private drinking clubs that were there before. So we've invested a good deal of money here already, probably more than I should mention. We also own the parking lot at the rear that we lease to the city. And we've got plans to continue to invest here in High Street. And Adam and his team's interest in the building is exactly the kind of interest that we would like to generate for the development going forward. So if there's any property-specific related questions, I'm here to answer any that any may have, and any Primanti Brothers specific questions, Adam certainly will be happy to come back up to the microphone and answer what he needs to.
And so the upper stories, just generally, they'll be retained as apartments?
Yeah, so we renovated every apartment unit within these buildings. These are actually 2 historic buildings. They were designed and built by, I guess, a famous architect from Morgantown named I.C. White. I have to say it slowly because I say I.C. Light from time to time. But he actually lived in this building. And this building, when we bought it, was actually comprised of just a couple of really big 2-bedroom units. We went
Really?
ahead and in this building, we actually have, I don't want to lose track, we have 8 3-bedroom apartments in this building. They were completely gutted, renovated back in 2018, 2019 timeframe. Again, our timing was perfect, right? We went to lease kind of in the spring of 2020. So it was challenging getting out of the gates. Nothing that anybody could do about it. But in the building next door, we actually have 4 4-bedroom units. And in the building, the new building that we built, we have 8 2-bedroom units. So we have a mix of units, but they are all brand new. All these buildings were kind of loaded with asbestos, had some structural issues. They've been completely remediated, and new roofs, new mechanicals, and we have at this point tried to preserve. We did new windows as well, and we've tried to continue to preserve some of the outside integrity of the buildings. We've been through design review committee and have spent a lot of time with Morgantown, albeit a little bit different regime back in 2018, but are happy to be working with the group again and be active with the project.
So just so I'm clear, as far as how this is going to be configured, are people going to be entering the restaurant from the former Casa entrance?
Yeah, if you want to pull the.
And then there's a walk-up there?
So people will enter from here. This will be the front door, which is really the bottom where the pizza place is
Right.
currently. We have doors to the back, but they will not be opened. But we need those from an egress standpoint. We have a walkway with a handicapped accessible lift here because there's an elevation difference between the 2 buildings that two spaces we're putting together. And then we have a door here, but it's an egress won't be open.
Okay.
Okay.
And in 1911, they didn't match my floor elevations the same way, and actually half the building sits about 28 inches higher. High Street's actually, you can't tell from this picture, there's a fair amount of grade to High Street
There
right at
is.
the end.
Yep. Okay. So, yeah, that's a good question in terms of compatibility of use between the restaurant and the residential.
And this is more for my curiosity. but obviously there's a difference between operating a business down in Suncrest versus downtown, and downtown crowds are downtown crowds. How do you guys mitigate issues with like how do you guys mitigate issues late at night in your Pittsburgh establishments?
Yeah, so we operate multiple restaurants late at night. We operate restaurants on multiple college campuses also, so we have expertise in this. We are super responsible in serving. To start there, all of our staff is trained before they even get to talk to a guest about responsible serving. We use a third-party service that goes in and tests our servers to make sure they're carding. And they come in, they look in their 20s. If an employee fails that test, they're immediately terminated. That's the level of importance this is to us. We have a trained security staff and liability that we train our team on to make sure that, we're not going to be a rowdy bar. That's not the brand. So, super intense training for all of our staff. All of our managers are trained on proper service, cutting people off when they need to be cut off. It's really, it's so important. We have 45 liquor licenses. You can't have one bring the whole thing down. So, I think if you've experienced, we'll have probably more college students here than we do at Suncrest, but we've got a fair share of college students down there that are, make their way down there. I think we'll, take that same level of responsible service and not being a nuisance. We want to be a plus to the community, not a nuisance bar.
Thank you.
And to that point, this may seem trivial, but I don't think it really is. They close at 10 p.m. or plan to close at 10 p.m. on Thursday. Thursday is a hopping
Right.
time here.
10 is early.
10 is very early, so
Thursday.
I think there's, from that standpoint, there's some mitigation just from that fact alone.
Yeah, if you go back to the plans also,
Sure.
We're not just building a bar, we're bringing a full restaurant. So this
Yeah.
is not we're not building a bar, we're building a restaurant that has a bar.
service.
Okay.
So we have a full kitchen here and then putting a kitchen in the basement also
Oh, wow.
from that
Wow.
standpoint. So we'll have all the prep in the basement. So,
Oh.
it's a restaurant that serves alcohol, not a bar that serves food.
I
Nice.
also want to point out, this space was just a bar that didn't serve any food until July of this year. This space, as well as this space, until mid-21, those spaces were just bars that served no food. So almost 3/4 of my building was occupied by kind of bar nightclub space when we bought it. I have nothing against bars and nightclubs. If you asked around a little bit, you probably hear that from others too. But it was not the kind of, I've got 20 residential units to lease here as well, right? It was difficult to have mom and dad come in from suburban Pittsburgh or Charleston and see kind of the tenant mix we had, with us relying on effectively half of our income from the property coming from the residential units.
Yep.
So it's strategic from our side too. And being from Pittsburgh and understanding a little bit about Permane Brothers, we couldn't be happier when they showed some interest in the property.
And this will activate the street more than your previous tenants.
Right.
100%.
I agree with you 100%. It gives us an opportunity to really do 2 whole storefronts instead of just redoing this 1,500 feet at a time, which is effectively what I've done from kind of Chase up, right? Little tiny spots. They turned out great. They've been great. I actually have 2 vacant ones in the building, kind of in between this building and the new building. But this gives me something to build off of as well and kind of finish up the development. I own a building on Willie Street too that came along with this portfolio. Don't quite know what to do with it yet, but it's last on the list. Next will be what we call Building B, which is the building in between Permane's and Chipotle.
And then so you mentioned you own the lot, the rear, which you lease to the city. Is the available parking going to be adequate in terms of being able to serve your desired volume?
Yeah,
Do you see any problems?
No, I've been down, as you can imagine, when you're spending this much money on an investment, you come down multiple times throughout the year. I've never been challenged for parking here.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it's as much as parking in
And
this
there's
lot.
gonna be foot traffic too.
There's also the lot down by the dry cleaners.
Yep.
Yeah.
I found spots there. And then we think also being 400 feet from the university administration offices, we think that would be a big driver for us also.
Yeah, there's certainly gonna be foot traffic.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Chair, just wanted to point out too, in terms of parking loading standards, because they're in the B4 district and their development project is less than 15,000 square feet, there is no minimum off-street parking requirement. So the fact that they're able to provide that already, it goes above and beyond what they're required to in the code,
Thank
which
you
we
very much.
appreciate.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have no further questions.
I just have one question. In finding of fact 3, when it's asking about light and air will not be disturbed, it states here that there will be no construction to the exterior of the building. Is that really true? Because the rendering that we were shown doesn't seem to match the floor plan that's in these.
Yeah, it looks like there's awning material on the,
Well, not only that, the floor plan that's in here matches what's currently there. But the rendering that we were just shown shows completely new windows, new doors, a flat front, not the inset entrance that's currently there.
I can speak to this, to
Sure.
some degree, and you can
Yeah.
jump in here, Adam. So, from an exterior standpoint, there's nothing else that's getting added onto the building.
Correct, okay.
Outside
Yes.
of what is currently there.
Yeah.
The storefront in the front will change,
Okay.
right? And we'll have to go through our DRC
Yeah.
process to go ahead and have that approved.
Right.
But there's nothing beyond the current building footprint that's currently being constructed, or
what's
currently, or
Yeah.
what's there. So
Sure.
does that clear it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
so like exterior lighting fixtures won't project, signage won't project off of the facade.
When you mean project or come out?
Like out from the plane
That-
of the front facade.
Is this relevant to their petition for a liquor license?
It's,
So I-
as Mr. Virgin pointed out, that is actually, that's part of the design review process for the signing permit. And in the staff report's recommendation, if there is any signage or any
They have to come
improvements made to
back.
the
Yeah.
exterior.
For a separate,
That's
under a
a
separate
it has to go-
case.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right.
separate.
And we may be back in front of this group if you're a group that approves signage variances.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, we
Yeah.
may be back in front
Yeah.
of this group,
Yeah.
I'm not
You will
sure.
be back in front of this group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
My only thing then with number, where's the one?
you
There
said
will
3.
be- Yeah, 3. Could we just say, instead of it saying there will be no construction, no new, or nothing to add, to extend out,
Just no construction that will alter or expand
expand, yeah.
or modify the exterior of the building.
Yeah.
Will that do it?
Yeah, sure.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
On the just to make sure we're okay, the front is gonna be modified though, right?
This is all gonna be replaced.
Yeah.
And maybe the finding of fact should be that there'll be no modifications without further approval as required by the code.
And that's listed in the staff's
Yeah,
recommendation.
Yeah,
that's
that's
fine.
in the reference.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that might be a better finding of fact.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not
Thank you.
expanding the footprint of the building.
No.
So the
Gotcha.
condition covers,
Mr. Chair, I would say the way it's stated in the packet, I think is sufficient,
condition 3 covers,
but the conditions in the recommendation cover that.
right?
Yeah.
And specifically, condition 3 on page
Yes.
60 of the packet, 4 of this, for this
Just a minute.
particular case, condition 3 covers your,
Yeah,
Show me where that's at, please, Mr. Bennett.
so it's page
60?
60. Yep. Page 4 of the packet as it relates to case C 23-05. So it's this one right there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I
I'm
think-
with it.
Did your legal Did you want to speak to the
I
case?
said all I needed to say. I'm a man of few words.
We're equal.
Usually he's not.
All right. We want to give everyone equal
Oh.
and ample opportunity to weigh in, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're all set at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Public hearing.
Yeah, let's open the public
Well, he's
hearing.
got a stack of
Yeah, that's
them.
right, we need,
You can do public hearing first.
really?
I'll go first. I'll
You
just
go
do that,
first.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
So
keep it
staff
simple.
recommendation,
Same order.
after review, staff had no additions, corrections, or modifications to the findings of fact presented, and staff recommends approval of the restaurant private club use, and with the conditions listed in the packet, and would recommend approval.
Okay.
Okay. Before I open the public, well, let me open the public
Yep.
hearing, and then I'll take up my additional point later. We're gonna open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to case CU 23-05, now's your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, we're gonna close the public hearing. Further discussion?
They have experience doing this. They have mitigating factors in place relevant to the administration of how they would handle their liquor license.
Mhm.
They've done this before, and
Right.
it seems, and they're a bona fide restaurant, which is
Right.
Bigger.
something
Yeah.
you don't see sometimes.
And we have, the only other point that I want to make here is, other liquor license proposals that we've taken up, we've gone with the 60/40. And
But I think it said there are
that, I just want to mention that, but since they've
already been in business.
And that's
They've already
listed, that's
been in
listed
business in the
Yeah,
area,
it's
that
mentioned in
staff
does
that.
not
mentioned.
apply it to this particular case,
Right.
Yeah, they've been in operation, more than a year,
Yeah.
so.
right?
And-
Significantly longer than that.
Slightly to that point, but it is mentioned that we're relying on the other restaurant that's within the vicinity to approve this. My only question is there anything that states what vicinity actually is? I mean, I know exactly where it is. I'm
Right.
fine with it, but just from a legal standpoint, what is vicinity?
Well,
I don't believe there's a definition in your zoning code about that. I think that basically what you would do is use what is, sort of a common sense approach.
Okay.
And Suncrest is clearly close.
It's right there.
To here,
Yeah.
though it is on the other side of the city limits. So I think that even though there's not a definition of what vicinity is, I think a reasonable definition would be someplace that would be, I think the Suncrest restaurant would fall within that.
Okay. And I believe you. I just wanted to
Yeah.
sort of
Valid point.
ask the question.
It's also worth noting that that establishment has not been a nuisance, so.
Does anyone have any qualms regarding, I mean, this is a different location. It's downtown, adjacent to the university campus with a different, maybe demographic. Does anyone have any concerns in terms of the restaurant, private club,
Nope.
no,
alcohol
and I would-
dispensing?
Well, I just appreciate the applicant, Adam, when he's talked about what they do from a training perspective. I mean, that's wonderful, and that's the type of establishment we want to see in our downtown.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean,
No, I was just raising that point because we consider these cases on
Sure.
a case-by-case basis, so.
And unlike, well, they have mitigation efforts.
Right.
So I think.
I think it's gonna be
I think
a great
I think the risk
addition.
is mitigated.
Yeah, I do too. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you for the other board members that asked such good questions, because I think it really brought out the true heart of this business, and it makes it easy, I think, to vote on. So on that note, I'd like to say that I move that we accept the findings of fact as stated in the packet.
We have a motion. We have a motion by Ms. Cook to accept the findings of fact, seconded by Mr. Schombarger. How do we vote?
Aye.
We've accepted the findings of fact. Do we have a motion to grant the the conditional use for this case, 23-05.
I move that we grant the conditional use 23-05 with the conditions proposed by planning as stated in the packet.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to grant the conditional use for case 2305, subject to the conditions referenced on page 60 of the meeting packet. I'll second that. So we have a motion, seconded.
Yep.
How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we've granted your request for your conditional use. You will receive written notification from planning, typically 7 days. This can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. And again, keep in mind, there is a 30-day window during which if you decide to undertake any work in that 30-day period is done at your sole financial risk. So thank you very much, and good luck with your project.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Merry Christmas.
And yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Happy New Year. All right. Take care. Safe trip back up to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hopefully we're going to talk about more projects.
yeah.
absolutely.
Anything else?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yes,
Take
thank
care.
you.
Thank you very much.
Anything?
Any announcements?
No announcements.
All
Just wish you all Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, I move we
Same
adjourn.
to you. Yep.
Second.
And we're just gonna wait here for the magic ribbon to go out. So we have hereby adjourned this meeting for December 20th,
Go.
the BZA.